Now, a special report from Carol Evan Investigates.
I was paying for two, but only getting one.
A massive taxpayer ripoff.
This is widespread.
Hundreds of Minnesota police agencies overcharged on their patrol cars.
Across the state of Minnesota, the taxpayers are paying for things that they aren't getting.
A whistleblower's warnings ignored.
What was done?
Nothing was done.
And what the state calls a swindle exposed.
This was going on a long time. Were you intentionally trying to rip off police departments?
Carol Evan Investigates. Double billing the badge.
Thanks for joining us. I'm investigative reporter AJ Legault. This is a story of how we discovered police and sheriff's departments across Minnesota may have become crime victims themselves. Follow along as we expose what state leaders are now calling a systematic scheme to swindle taxpayers. It's April of 2017 at the Maplewood Police Department, and the hunt under the hood is on.
It should be in the car, right, because we did not get a deduct.
What can't be located
I don't see it.
by the city mechanic is an engine block heater.
I'm not seeing one.
We didn't either, but
Police Chief Paul Schnell's department paid for an engine block heater.
and it's not on the car.
Just one example in a Carol Evan investigation that uncovered Minnesota taxpayers charged hundreds of thousands of dollars for features on police vehicles that either are not there or, in many cases, like with this spotlight, were paid for twice.
We've been paying $187 for those.
Under the state-issued contract for police SUVs, it spells out what must be included in the standard base package at the contracted price. There's engine block heaters, rear windows that can't be rolled down from the back seats, spotlights, and heated mirrors. But when Carol Evan went line by line over Maplewood PD's vehicle purchases, we found they were charged an extra $79 for engine block heaters, $187 for the spot lamps, $53 for the heated mirrors, and $30 to make the rear windows inoperative.
Based on the findings that you've uncovered here, we've paid for items as add-ons that were or should have been included in the base price of a car.
Double billed.
Double bill.
To understand how we expose this double billing scheme, we'll need to take you behind the scenes of Carol Evan's investigation.
Look at the spotlight now.
In early March, we met with Steve Kleiber, a private citizen with both a law enforcement and vehicle purchasing background.
But you see what I was showing you.
Yeah.
Steve claimed that 2 years ago, back in 2015, he discovered the St. Paul Police Department had been overcharged for spotlights and heated mirrors on some of their squad cars, purchased using the state's master contract with Nelson Auto of Fergus Falls.
It's pretty simple. They were supposed to provide black and white. This is what we provide. Here's the price, and they weren't doing it.
St. Paul took what Steve discovered and demanded a refund. So Nelson Auto cut this check, paying back more than $13 grand. Suspecting the same thing might be happening at other police departments, Steve took what he'd found to State Patrol's Vehicle Crimes Task Force and the Department of Administration, the state agency which oversees the contract. But Steve says he was largely ignored.
My frustration level was pretty high because I took it to the people that I thought should deal with it and address the problem, and basically nothing's happened.
Nothing for 2 years. So Steve reached out to Carol Evan Investigates, and we were about to uncover a scheme that authorities now say overcharged taxpayers all across the state hundreds of thousands of dollars. Using public records requests, we started by auditing the SUV purchases of 20 different police and sheriff's departments. We discovered every single one of them was double billed. Clearly you don't have two spotlights here.
No, just one spotlight.
South St. Paul Police Chief William Mesrick paid $392 for upgraded LED spotlights on his SUVs.
We found the LEDs draw less on the batteries.
But we found he also paid $200 for the standard halogen spotlights included in the base price per the state contract. Spotlights that are not on the car and for which he received no credit.
And so you didn't know when you upgraded these, you should have been getting a credit for the one that was already coming standard?
No, we weren't aware of that.
Purchasing records show South St. Paul also paid double for heated mirrors, engine block heaters, and for those back window switches not to work.
It's probably a couple $100 a car that we're paying too much for.
A couple $100 per car may not sound like all that much, but consider the dealership that had the state contract sold 558 of the Ford Police Interceptor SUVs last fiscal year alone, worth roughly $15 million. We're talking real money here.
I can't imagine what the dollars could add up to. I can't imagine.
We discovered the overcharging happened at smaller agencies, including Rosemont, Apple Valley, and Brooklyn Center, and mid-sized departments, such as the Stearns County Sheriff's Office.
I was paying for two, but only getting one.
And even at the major metro agencies like St. Paul and Hennepin County. Curtis Haas is the finance director in charge of purchasing the Hennepin Sheriff's Office vehicles.
Across the state of Minnesota, the taxpayers are paying for things that they aren't getting.
So, who's responsible? Who's pocketing hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, double billed on Minnesota police vehicles? Our search for answers took us north to Fergus Falls, Minnesota. A car dealership here, Nelson Auto Center, had the master contract to sell Ford police SUVs statewide. The point man was fleet manager Jerry Werner, seen here on a company website.
Nelson Auto Center offers a variety of vehicles.
It's Jerry's name on all the double-billed invoices we discovered, which is why we're paying a visit to his 5,696-square-foot riverfront home.
Mr. Werner, AJ Legault, I'm from KARE 11 News. I wanted to talk with you about the double billing issue going on with the police vehicles.
Yeah, no comment.
Well, this was going on a long time. Were you intentionally trying to rip off police departments?
We wanted answers from Jerry Werner. What we got was a closed door. We wondered, is this just a case of bad bookkeeping? Or did Jerry Werner and Nelson Auto know about the double billing and continue to do it? Coming up.
And certainly some of the things you've uncovered, this is widespread.
How widespread? And why were a whistleblower's warnings about a possible crime ignored when double billing the badge continues? In the wake of our investigation, law enforcement agencies across Minnesota
I can't see it.
were checking their fleet of patrol vehicles.
So on this one, you paid double.
And this one we paid double.
Looking to see if they got what they paid for, or if they were charged twice for the same features like spotlights, engine heaters.
Also, heated mirrors.
They're all features the state contract says must be included in the base price of the vehicle. But KARE 11's investigation found they were repeatedly being double billed by the vendor, Nelson Auto Center in Fergus Falls, dating back to model year 2012. What's more, there's evidence Jerry Werner, Nelson's fleet manager at the time, was aware of and being asked directly about the billing issues.
So I began questioning that.
In 2015, Stearns County noticed they were being double billed on engine block heaters and spot lamps.
That's true.
So Lieutenant Robert Dickhouse emailed Jerry Werner with a question.
Do I need to pay for this spotlight, or is this something that's included? And the response I got was, oh, that's included.
From then on, Stearns was charged properly on those items, but records show other departments like Maplewood continued to be double billed for features Werner had already acknowledged should have been included in the base price.
It then begs the question, why did we continue to get charged?
After KARE 11 shared our findings with Maplewood Police Chief Paul Schnell, he contacted the BCA, which launched its own criminal investigation.
This was going on a long time. Were you intentionally trying to rip off police departments?
Jerry Werner wouldn't speak with us.
Were you incompetent, sir, or are you a crook?
But through his attorney, denied any wrongdoing. Nelson's owners, Brent and Laurel Nelson, told authorities the first they heard about the billing problems was this spring, when two law enforcement agencies KARE had been questioning contacted the dealership. The Nelsons say they immediately began an internal review, identified about $700,000 in improper billing, and fired fleet manager Jerry Werner, claiming he took 100% responsibility.
We want accountability first and foremost.
The BCA investigation would eventually result in these criminal charges against Jerry Werner. More about that later. But criminal or not, the examples of double billing we discovered, from heated mirrors to engine block heaters, raise the question, who's watching out for your tax dollars? Coming up,
what happened is we misdiagnosed the warning bells, if you will.
the changes the state is making in the wake of our investigation. Our investigation found examples of double billing for equipment on police cars all across the state.
It adds up into real money, and it's all taxpayer money.
KARE's findings raised lots of questions. A big one being, was this an isolated case involving just Nelson Auto's Ford Police SUV contract? It's a question the Minnesota Legislative Auditor's Office announced it would be looking into.
To see whether or not these kinds of purchasing flaws are occurring in other types of purchases too.
Carol Levin continued to dig, and we found that double billing on state contracts was not isolated to just the Ford SUVs. Nelson Auto also had the state contract to sell Dodge Chargers, like this one owned by the St. Paul PD. And we found examples of overcharging on the Dodge contract too. And we discovered Nelson Auto was not the only state vendor overcharging law enforcement. Ford of Hibbing has the state contract to sell sedan police interceptors. The contract spells out what must be included in the standard base package, including incandescent bulb spotlights and carpeting. But on this purchase, we found Hennepin County got charged an extra $112 for carpeting, and when they upgraded to an LED spotlight, they should have received a $187 credit for the incandescent one that comes standard, but did not.
There are a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Ford of Hibbing told us what we found were isolated mistakes, totaling about $10,000 over 3 years. They wrote, "We've taken corrective action by adding another step in the review process so this does not happen in the future." State officials who've reviewed the records agree they appear to be simple mistakes.
There was certainly no indication of a systematic effort to defraud the state.
But remember, at Nelson Auto, the overcharges totaled nearly $750,000 by the dealership's own estimate.
We wanted to know how this could have gone unnoticed for so long. What we found is the state has known all about it for years.
Somebody found out about it, I expect that they would have told us.
Remember, there's a man who says he did try to blow the whistle.
Absolutely.
Steve Kleiber stumbled on the double billing back in 2015 and took his findings to the St. Paul PD. Thanks to his tip, St. Paul demanded a refund from Nelson Auto and got this check for more than $13 grand. But the story doesn't stop there. Carol Levin obtained records showing that St. Paul officials also alerted the Department of Administration, the state agency responsible for the police vehicle contract. A city employee wrote to the state in April of 2015. It has been brought to our attention that the pricing that has been charged by Nelson Auto may have been incorrect for years 2013, 2014, and 2015. What's more, Steve Kleiber says he met personally with admin to share his suspicion that the overbilling could be widespread.
What was done?
Nothing, and nothing was done to make sure that the cities and counties that were overcharged got their money back.
We asked Admin Commissioner Matt Massman what happened.
What happened is we misdiagnosed the warning bells, if you will.
The department did do one thing. Buried in the contract, they added a small warning to buyers to double check about double billing. But there were no audits, no accountability, no further refunds to taxpayers.
If the state knew about it, they certainly should have relayed that information onto the agencies purchasing off those contracts.
In the wake of Carol Levin's findings, Commissioner Massman now admits mistakes were made.
We concluded at that time, with the information that we had, that it was an isolated incident, almost errors on the part of the ordering agencies rather than overcharging on the part of the vendor.
Your opinion's changed on that now.
Clearly.
What's not so clear is why State Patrol's Vehicle Crimes Task Force also failed to investigate. Records show the State Patrol got early warnings too. Back in 2013, State Patrol had discovered they had been double billed on about 200 of their squads. Nelson Auto cut them a refund check for about $35,000. Then, 2 years later, the cop car ripoff landed on their radar again, because Steve Kleiber brought his concerns to State Patrol investigators too.
Did you meet with State Patrol?
Yes.
Leading up to that meeting, there were a slew of internal State Patrol emails. One officer writes, "It could be an interesting case. Maybe just a theft by swindle, but it involves the dealer who holds the state contract for vehicles. Not just our vehicles, but many other divisions." Another officer seems dubious, writing, "My guess is it will be like finding a needle in a haystack, but hopefully he can tell us who to look at and where it is documented in the paperwork."
And
Steve says that's exactly what he did.
Brought them about 125 pages of stuff. They made copies of it, explained to them, showed them what was going on, and never really heard back from them.
State Patrol tells a different story. They claim at their meeting with Steve, he only told them about overbilling on their own patrol vehicles, which they'd already discovered 2 years prior, and that he never brought up that other agencies like St. Paul had been double billed. When we asked State Patrol for their records proving that claim, they told us no one at their meeting with Steve took any notes or afterwards filed any reports or sent any emails.
Just basically took what I gave them and threw it away and chose not to even look at it.
They're looking now. So is the Office of the Minnesota Legislative Auditor.
Our understanding of the concerns raised by you and by what the department told us, we decided that we would take a look at this.
Still ahead. Carol Evans' investigation prompts criminal charges.
You're charging this as a scheme to defraud taxpayers?
Correct. And it really is.
When double billing the badge continues.
This was going on a long time. Were you intentionally trying to rip off police departments?
That was just one of the questions.
Were you incompetent, sir, or are you a crook?
We had back in April for Jerry Werner, the longtime fleet manager for Nelson Auto of Fergus Falls, the state vendor with the multi-million-dollar contract to sell Ford SUVs to police agencies. Our investigation had uncovered a massive taxpayer ripoff.
The county paid money that they shouldn't have.
Stearns County is certainly not alone. According to this criminal complaint, we now know at least 205 police and government agencies across the state either did not get what they paid for,
I can't see it,
or were charged twice.
And this one we paid double.
For equipment such as spotlights and heated mirrors.
Certainly some of the things you've uncovered, this is widespread.
The BCA investigated. The result? These criminal charges. Theft by swindle against Nelson Auto's former fleet manager, Jerry Werner. Court records say he made a 40% commission on all profits, so every overcharge put money in his pocket.
Unfortunately, it went on for quite some time.
Michelle Eldine is Otter Tail County's chief deputy prosecutor. She's handling the case against Werner.
You're charging this as a scheme to defraud taxpayers?
Correct. And it really is.
Jerry Werner denies the charges. Kent Marshall is his attorney.
I don't think that he did anything sneaky or tricky.
He contends the state contracts are confusing and any double billing was accidental.
There were mistakes made, but they were honest mistakes.
Were they just honest mistakes? Court records detail how 2 other employees in the fleet department at Nelson Auto told investigators they were aware of the overcharges and warned Jerry Werner that what they were doing was morally wrong. But according to the criminal charges, the double billing continued.
This appears to be a case of misplaced trust in a state vendor?
I would say huge misplaced trust, unfortunately.
While Werner is awaiting trial, the state has instituted its own reform measures.
I'm angry. This is a very frustrating experience to have had a state contract taken advantage of like this.
Massman contends CARE's findings prove what he's been warning lawmakers about, that Minnesota has an antiquated, paper-based procurement system that makes checks and balances nearly impossible. Here's an audio recording of him sounding the alarm at the Capitol last legislative session.
We essentially are not able to verify that we are always getting the low price.
The Department of Administration says it needs a massive upgrade into the 21st century with a $10 million e-procurement system to better provide oversight.
Minnesotans, I would say, expect us to have the Amazon experience. Our service is more in line with the Montgomery Ward's mail order catalog.
But that does not explain why the department did little to nothing to protect taxpayers from double billing on the police car contracts. Remember, whistleblower Steve Kleiber says he warned them about overcharges by Nelson Auto back in 2015.
What was done?
Nothing, and nothing was done.
In this tweet, GOP lawmakers pointed to that failure, exposed in Carol Evans' investigation, as a reason to deny the $10 million e-procurement upgrade. In the wake of our investigation, Commissioner Massman has instituted a new fraud prevention policy requiring immediate steps to conduct an internal review whenever there's an allegation of financial irregularity to ensure the proper expenditure of public dollars. They've also hired a compliance expert just to review state contracts for abuses.
We want to make sure we're putting the resources on it to get this right, and frankly to deter any potential vendor from doing something similar on another state contract.
Nelson Auto Center offers a variety of vehicles.
Although Jerry Werner, the former fleet manager whose name was on the Nelson Auto contracts, is facing criminal charges, the dealership is not. The owners at Nelson Auto told KARE 11 they had no knowledge of and didn't approve the overcharges. Even so, the state pulled its multi-million-dollar contract with Nelson for Ford SUV police vehicles.
You've stripped the state vendor of the contract to sell police vehicles?
Yeah, we did that in April as we became aware of the breadth and scope of the fraudulent activity that was going on here.
And officials say after the final audit is finished, they expect that roughly $700,000 will be refunded to police and sheriff's departments across Minnesota.
Just want to thank KARE 11 for bringing this to our attention, and looks like we're going to get a refund at some point from the dealership.
Jerry Werner is awaiting trial, and the legislative auditor's review is ongoing. We're going to keep you posted on those developments. Now, as you saw, this investigation started with a tip. If you want to blow the whistle on government waste or corruption, or know about something else we should investigate, email us at investigations@kare11.com. I'm AJ Legault. On behalf of all of us here at KARE 11, thanks for joining us for Double Billing the Badge.